Okay, I think we can start. I just want to make sure about a couple of things. First of all, I think you should be able to see me. Second thing, can please someone confirm to me that you can hear me also quite well, to proceed with all of this stuff, and please respond in a chat. Okay, Roger, thank you. I'm just running a new setup and want to make sure that everyone hear and see everything. One additional thing that we need to do before we start is that we are also going to be doing at some terminal here, and I think I need to zoom it a little bit in so that you can also see everything that we type. I think this should be fine. We may adjust later on. Okay, so what's the plan? The plan is to talk about Zabbix migration from MySQL to the PostgreSQL database. Good thing for you is that all of this tutorial is not actually um, exclusive for the Zabbix. Basically, after this webinar, you will know how to migrate any database from MySQL to the PostgreSQL. And yeah, because all of these steps that we're going to do here are going to apply no matter of the service, and everything will be fine. So it's a good knowledge to have, and that's actually the main purpose of this webinar for today. We're probably not going to go so much deep in the theory of what commands to run and what we're doing. We're going to have the real practical use case. As you already saw here, where's my terminal? I already have a Zabbix installed. And even to make it a bit more interesting, we have installed Zabbix 8.0. 8.0, which is going to be the next LTS version. It's available right now, but in a state of Alpha 2. So it's not official stable version yet, not bundled with all of the features that are expected in the 8.0, and definitely not stable enough to run in your production. So don't rush right away to upgrade to 8.0, but it is good enough to like play around in your labs and see what's inside and how it works. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to use the 8.0 installation with a MySQL, and we're going to migrate it to same 8.0, of course, on a Postgres. Couple of rules. I think nothing exclusive. Again, things are as usual. All of your microphones are muted. You can ask your questions at any time, but please do that in a Q&A screen window, whatever, and not in a chat. In a chat, you can use like for discussion, networking, or applause, or just let me know if something off, like I don't know, need to zoom in more in the terminal so that you can see all of the stuff and stuff like that. Okay. Um, okay. So why to migrate? I guess like one of the biggest questions, if we are here and we want to learn how to do that, probably there should be like a main question, like why even we want to do that. And in theory, there's like again a lot of the reasons. You can always find out the excuse for any actions that you might be doing, like better community support, better performance and stability. Postgres is definitely like a very solid and production ready database engine, and you can achieve a very good results with a Postgres. And nowadays, like if we talk about um, all sort of the services and softwares that are running, not limited to the Zabbix, very often for a large scale, high performance setups, people and architects and DevOps people use specifically Postgres. It's definitely very solid and a good database that will help you achieve good results, especially if your piece of software is very much dependent on the database performance. Zabbix History Syncer is not ready for master-master replication. That's kind of like a small note because master-master, that's how usually like MySQL runs in terms of replication. But yeah, Zabbix still basically runs just to one node, and then we just make sure that all of that setup is replicated to our replica. So it's not a big advantage of having it and not a big disadvantage of losing it. Probably the biggest reason why someone would want to have a Postgres setup is ability to have out of the box partitioning and also compression via the TimescaleDB extension. And important to understand that the TimescaleDB is like not exactly Postgres, but TimescaleDB is extension for the Postgres. So if you want to have a TimescaleDB, you will need to run a MySQL. And for many, many years, this was like a very important thing because partitioning, I would say it's absolutely mandatory thing for any production Zabbix installation. And by default, your installation doesn't have partitioning. By default, it is running with the housekeeper, which is internal process. And the main purpose of the housekeeper is to clean up your database, maybe MySQL or MariaDB or a Postgres, from the old data which we don't need anymore. And by old data, I mean like whenever we are configuring some sort of the items, we usually specify for how long do we want to keep history. So basically set up history retention settings, right? And uh, what I wanted to say. I just looked on my face in a camera and started to think. I think it's actually, yeah, I'm running the camera from the Mac, not from my external camera. I was thinking like why it looks so weird. Uh, Nevertheless, so we specify the history retention settings for our items, and then the housekeeper is responsible to basically scan our database, and whenever some historical data is older than we wanted to have, what it does, it just deletes that historical data. And here important to hear me precisely, and when I say like delete, and delete is not a fast operation inside a database. To perform a delete, we first of all need to scan the whole table and find out what do we need to delete, and then do the delete itself. And this process is not very fast, it's slow, and the larger the database, the slower it is. That's one thing. And the second thing, like if we do like delete in MySQL as example, or same in a Postgres, delete does not really reclaim us any disk space. And we just have a free spots and free slots in our database table that we later can fill in with some additional data. But the problem with the housekeeper is that whenever your database and your Zabbix installation starts to grow, the housekeeper is just unable to keep up. And what we start to see is housekeeper being 100% busy. And that always comes with additional things such as performance issues and no data triggers start a fire, and our front end may start to become unresponsive, and we could see some slow queries in our Zabbix server log. So the things are overall bad. And that's a limitation of the housekeeper. Of course, having a good hardware specs and tuning of the database will help you, but eventually, whenever you hit like 500 gigabytes of the database size, you will basically reach the limit of the housekeeper. What you can do that is switch to partitioning, and that essentially means that we turn off housekeeper and we have a partitioning. Our history table, as example, is partitioned per day. So we have one partition for every day of the history. And then we have something that runs in the background and every day like drops all of the day partitions that are older than we want to keep. And that something is the biggest problem and always was the biggest problem, because with a MySQL as example, that could be external management script, which completely has like nothing to do with MySQL or Zabbix, whatever. It could be Perl script, it can be Python script, it can be Bash script, and Zabbix never shipped a script as such out of the box. So you basically need to figure out yourself where you're gonna find it. Maybe you find something in a community, and then you upgrade your I don't know, whatever Zabbix distribution of your Linux flavor, and suddenly the script doesn't work, and there's a lot of issues, and then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So it's a lot of pain. Um, Other method could be with the internal procedures. That would be like fully with the features and functionalities of the database itself, but I would say that it's not a reliable way of doing partitionings. I've never liked the way of doing that with internal procedures. And nevertheless, that's still something that you need to create yourself and partition the database and set up procedures. And for many, it might be not the easiest task. In a Postgres, there was always the way to configure partitioning based on triggers. That had also many limitations and many issues. And then we got a TimescaleDB. Like I don't remember, maybe like 5-ish years ago, Zabbix added TimescaleDB support to the Postgres, which basically removes all of this limitation. Like you don't need a housekeeper out of the box. You can just spin up TimescaleDB, and it gives you like a native partitioning uh, of your of your tables inside a Zabbix, and you don't need to worry about external scripts or procedures or triggers, whatever. It's native. You just configure the retention period in the Zabbix frontends, and things happen magically in the background. And if someone would not tell you that there is some sort of the partitioning, you probably would not even know that. And as addition, a cherry on top of the cake is TimescaleDB also comes with ability to compress the data, especially if we talk about like very large databases. Whenever your manager is willing to keep like a lot of the history data very long in the history, now we might be talking about some terabytes. So by using the compression, you can heavily reduce a disk space usage for your Zabbix database. And of course, like smaller disk space usage means better performance out of the same hardware that you might have. Faster database, faster front end, more capable Zabbix in terms of NVPS and so on. So, a lot of talking about one single line of TimescaleDB, but it is like a very valuable thing. Easy and strong growth for high availability with a Patroni class cluster. Don't need to care about login trust function creators. So not really a big issue. I guess it's just like whenever you create a new database, you need to worry about it and many more. But I wanted like to emphasize like one thing. Um, I personally seen a lot cases whenever people are struggling, and in this case, like direction could be both ways. Very often, you will find someone who will have a lot of performance issues running on a Postgres database, and a lot of people might be having a lot of performance issues sitting on a MySQL database, and all of them share something in common. For some reason, they think that their database engine of choice is bad, and they think like, okay, I'll just switch to the other DB engine and suddenly everything will become good. Usually that's not the case. Usually when you're hitting like really big performance issues on the database, because of the database, it's a matter of configuration issues, tuning issues, your database tuning issues, and then maybe hardware, maybe your storage is slow and stuff like that. I would not say, especially if we talk about like one, two, three, five, 10,000 new values per second. I would not say that if you have some issues with these size on one database engine, moving to other, suddenly everything is going to be perfect. Not how it goes. Um, so important notice for any migration. It's just like like all of those videos and everything about investment advices and so on. It's not a financial advice, and this is not something that you should take for granted. We warn you in advance that you do the migration at your own risk, and we bear no responsibility for any damage caused by unprofessional intervention. I am playing here around. With no stress. I have a completely empty database and just a dummy setup of Zabbix 8.0, so I have nothing to risk about. But of course, whenever we're thinking of migrating the production database, especially if that's like a big database with um, a lot of data inside it, we need to be extra cautious. We don't want to break anything, and it's important to understand it's like also database migration is not something that's fully streamlined from the database perspective. It's not just some sort of the magic tool where you say like, hey, migrate from here is my MySQL database to here is my Postgres database. We need to do like a little bit tips and tricks, a little bit of the hacks, just to make sure that we move everything from our MySQL to the Postgres, because those are quite different databases, and they have a different schemas, and they have a different table structure, and we need to make sure that we do not lose any data, that we do not lose data integrity, and at the end we are happy with the result. So take care about Zabbix schema version. Basically, what you definitely need to keep in mind before you even try to do any migration, your existing Zabbix installation, and I talk about specifically about the database, needs to be in good shape. You don't want to do some sort of the things like migration with a database if your Zabbix server log is like full of the SQL errors about some constraint issues and stuff like that. If you have some modifications to official schema of the Zabbix, like you added some custom tables, or maybe you added some custom columns or indexes, or maybe you adjusted the field types of the table, or something like that, then even more than normally. It's very risky, and I guess nobody can predict like would it work out or not, because without taking a closer look. Especially like if you have some customizations with a database that are applied to some customizations of the Zabbix. Maybe you have some external tools, softwares, scripts that are working with the database directly and are working only based on some modifications that you have on your database. Don't skip any steps. This is very sensitive. Like we're not gonna have like 200 commands, and it's very much straightforward. But it is important that you should not skip anything. If at some point at step 5 you run a command from the presentation, and we're gonna have all of the commands here on the screen. Presentation gonna be shared later, so you'll have everything that you need to do the migration yourself. If let's say step 5 fails and you try again, it still fails. Don't just think of like whatever. Let's just continue and maybe it work out. It won't. So if you have some issues with whatever step, then make sure that you fix those issues, run the step successfully, and then continue with everything else. Be careful with the database triggers. In some older versions of the Zabbix, there are no triggers at all, so it's easy. And I'm not talking about Zabbix triggers right now. I'm talking about database triggers. Right now, there are triggers, especially in the Zabbix 8.0. I've checked myself. I think there's something like 54 triggers in a MySQL database, so we need to take care of all of them. If you need help, we are ready to help you with our team of Zabbix certified experts and also our team of Postgres certified engineers. So we're not just some random geeks with the knowledge with the Postgres, or like really certifications and everything. So capabilities with the Postgres database are very good. If you need some sort of help in terms of consultancy or maybe do the migration for you or some tuning, high availability setups, just reach out. Make sure your Zabbix environment is in good health and you don't have any problems with your MySQL database, including all the customizations. I already mentioned that. Check for supported version by your Zabbix server. So make sure that if you do some migration, that you do that to the proper version. And very often, almost always, you will not have the latest database version available right out of the box in your Linux distribution. Like as example, I'm going to be running all of the setups in Alma Linux 9. I'm going to explain why in the later slides. Why not 10? But like if we would want to install just DNF install Postgres server, we would get, I think, Postgres 15, which is like very old, and that would be a big mistake to migrate to Postgres 15. So always check the latest, greatest version of the database, add official repo of the database, and install everything that's up to date. And check for free disk space on a database server, because for the migration, basically at some point we're going to need to x2 of the disk space that we have, and then we can delete it. But just for the part of the migration, we need to make sure that we have enough of the disk space on our server. So check all potential issues in a log and on Zabbix reports system information before the migration. If we talk about the log, I think I'm not gonna surprise any of you. So the log file of the Zabbix server is located in var log Zabbix server .log. So basically, what you would want to do is let me make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, what you would want to do is just check the log. Mine, of course, is like super empty. As I said, I have a empty installation of 8.0. I don't even have an agent started, so there's nothing. You would want to check for, I think I can make it a bit smaller. You would want to check for some SQL errors, as I said, like constraint issues, stuff like that. If there's a lot of them, if there's any of them, you need to have a little bit more attention of what's going on. If there's none, perfect. So we're good to go. All right. So I can close this. Let me move this again away, and let me find where I have my Zabbix front end. So here is my front end. Let me squeeze in, and basically the report that we can see in the screenshot on the slides comes from reports system information. So what we want to have here is just make sure that everything is good. And right now in this setup on my screen, we have this warning of unsupported MySQL database server version should be at least 8.0400. True, completely. I'm running my Zabbix 8.0 with allow unsupported database parameter turned on, just because it is Zabbix 8.0, which works on Alma Linux 9, but it's like not as easy as on Alma Linux 10, as example. One thing is that you need to have a PHP version of at least 8.3. That's quite easily solvable. We already have a webinar recording in InitMac's website with install Zabbix in 5 minutes. It is exactly about a Zabbix 8.0 on Alma Linux 9. So you can check it out if you have some issues, and also have a YouTube video about it if that's what you want to check. And basically, I just did MySQL installation of just DNF install MySQL server from Alma Linux 9 repository, which is not the latest, greatest. And that's why the Zabbix right now doesn't like it. But it's not going to cause us any issues in terms of migration. Right. Preparation and all of the rules for our migration. So now we're going to start using the terminal. Oh gosh, I just understood that it's going to be very difficult for me hmm, to do the copy pasting from the slides that I'm sharing, right? Yeah. Okay, give me a second. I'll try to figure something out. Where's this one? I'm gonna try to entertain you while I try to solve this problem. So, the first thing that you need to do is check your Zabbix version, and we did that already in one of the first minutes whenever we started to this webinar. And it's basically Zabbix underscore server minus capital V, which is gonna throw us out a version, and that is gonna be very much needed later on because we're also gonna need to download the sources, and uh, and whenever we're gonna be downloading the sources, we're gonna need to download exactly exactly the same version that we are running. So I'm almost done. Yes. There we go. Now I'll be able to copy everything. And another thing that we need to make sure is that we're not pending for any restarts for our Zabbix server. And what I mean by pending any restarts is like um, whenever you do the upgrade of your Zabbix, let's say minor version that would be more common. So let's say we run 8.0, 8.0, and you DNF upgrade Zabbix server and you get 8.0.1. Uh, this is going to apply only when you're going to restart your Zabbix server. So this can cause us some issues, like if we think that, oh, we're running 8.0.0, like here, Alpha 2, but actually the binary is installed for 8.0.1. And whenever we're going to be doing some restarts in terms of the process, after the restart, the version is changing. Suddenly there might be some schema changes, and that can causes a lot of the problems. So just make sure that it is not a case. Usually it is not. It's hard to imagine for me, like when you would have a scenario that you download, upgrade the binary of the Zabbix server and just don't restart it. But maybe it could be the case in some cases. This is important for future steps. If your version is pending for restart after update, you may not have applied some important DB patches. Uh, Again, usually not the case in the minor version upgrades. Not like it never happened in the past, but kind of the guidelines of the Zabbix say that all of the database changes are done only in the major versions, so 7.0, 7.2, 7.4, 8.0, and not in the minor version upgrades. First steps and checks. What we need to do is check database triggers. And as I said, in a Zabbix 8.0, there's a lot of the triggers. Let me again tackle a bit this so that you can see everything. So what we need to do is we need to go to our server where our MySQL is installed. For me, it's the same virtual machine with a Zabbix server and the front end. So nothing fancy. For you, it might be some other server. So whenever you go there, I don't have any password just because it's dummy setup. You probably do in your production. So make sure that you do have access to the database, that you can go to the MySQL. Then we need to use our Zabbix database where kind of all of our Zabbix setup is spin up. And then we type show triggers. Show triggers \G just to make us a better view on all of the data. If we just going to use semicolon, it's going to be very messy and it's hard to understand. That's why \G is much better. So as it's mentioned in the slides, there could be two types of the results. One is empty sets, meaning that you don't have any triggers. In these conditions, you can skip section regarding to triggers, which is going to come a little bit later. If you have quite new Zabbix version, especially if you have like Zabbix 8.0, as you can see, you have 65 triggers Out of the box, clean installation. So basically default schema and everything of the Zabbix. So in this case, we definitely do need to take care about the triggers. Second result, you need to take care about the triggers in your migration. And this is the copy paste from same my installation of the Zabbix 8.0, which I did 2 days ago. Yeah, so in this case, we need to follow through all of the commands that we're going to have here in the presentation. And the first thing that we need to do is add official PostgreSQL repository that we recommend for the installation. And right now, the latest greatest is the PostgreSQL 18. Don't run just DNF install PostgreSQL, whatever. Always install the latest repository install from there. So first thing first, we need to quit from our MySQL shell. Then on my second screen, I need to find the command so that I can copy paste it. DNF install and the repository L9, that's for rel 9. So for Alma Linux 9, click enter. That's a very quick operation. Hmm, what happened? DNF, I'm a bit confused now. Ah, it actually didn't copy as the new line. So let me try to copy it again. This should be better. Yeah, because see here, like it broke the line, and I think I've executed two commands separately. So let's try it again. Still, come on. All of the problem of me copying repo latest no arch RPM. This should be better. Yeah, so now we're adding the repository. It's actually going to cause me some problem further down the road, most likely. But again, it's just a matter of copy pasting and not some bigger issue. So when we have our repository added, if you for some reason don't even know what kind of distribution you have, you can check in Etsy Red Hat release Alma Linux 9.7, which is going to work for RHEL-like systems. So Alma, CentOS, Rocky Linux, Red Hat Linux Enterprise, as example for Ubuntu, Debian, they're different commands. Not a fan of those flavors. Yeah, so all of my guides are always focused on rel. Then time to install the Postgres server, and we have all of the commands listed here. So basically, DNF install -y to automatically confirm everything that we're going to be installing. PostgreSQL 18, which is the latest and greatest version of the Postgres. So click enter. There we go. Something is happening magically, so can sip a bit of the water while that's happening.